It's good to see you again. And yes, what an election. I traveled from the south of India to the north, spending about 45 days on the road. And while I was able to pick up some of the anxiety, some of the disquiet, even among Narendra Modi's own voters, even I, who had forecast some reduction in the BJP's kitty, was not prepared for the scale of fall that the BJP has just undergone in this election. Uh, what made me feel that the BJP would take a few knocks? Well, mostly I asked voters two questions. What do you like about the Modi government and what do you not like? And I would ask their own voters, people who had voted them in this question. And while among the list of things that they liked, a lot of people would talk about infrastructure, security, India's place in the world, and so on. Among the things that people said was making them unhappy was the absence of enough focus on livelihood and jobs. And secondly, the BJP's own voters did not like the strident Hindu-Muslim divisiveness in the Prime Minister's own speeches. And they said if he has a third term, we urge him, dial this down. This began to make me feel that something is shifting. I wasn't sure of the scale of the shift. The scale was much bigger than I had anticipated, but it is this that made me feel something was going to turn.
Yeah, and that is so interesting that you talk about that, because Modi has exploited Hindu nationalism. He's almost sort of whipped it up, and it seemed to have been working for him. Yet India is a very proud secular nation. Do you think it was that sense of, no, we don't want this to go that far?
I think Indians see politics around Hinduism, or Hindutva as it's known, and nationalism as two separate things. And perhaps, strategically, tactically, Modi and his party merged the two. Indians, if you ask them, do applaud Modi for tough nationalist stances vis-a-vis external adversaries. What they're not so comfortable with is when people at home are othered, when the Muslim community, 200 million Indian Muslims, are othered or treated as adversaries. And, in your opening comments, you spoke about the speech where the Prime Minister referred to members of the Muslim community as infiltrators. Later, intriguingly in the campaign, obviously he got feedback that this had dented his image. This wasn't working for him. He actually disassociated from those remarks completely. And, in an interview to an Indian TV channel, he said, I didn't mean Muslims. But by then, that perception had gone down quite strongly. Now, look, let me make it clear. I'm not saying that this fall in seats is over any one thing. It's a combination of factors. And one of the things that enough people are not recognizing is that the Indian voter, I think, is not comfortable with any one person wielding too much power. In many ways, I see this verdict as an attempt to restrain and contain Narendra Modi, not reject him, but definitely clip his wings. Not comfortable with unbridled power. I think that is the message the voter is sending the Indian politician.
So how well do you think Narendra Modi will respond to that message if he reads it properly?
It's a very interesting question. The shift in language has begun. So just to make, put this in simple math, Modi doesn't have the numbers to form the government unless regional leaders support him. The two big regional leaders on whose support he's counting have politics very different from him. For instance, one of the leaders, Chandrababu Naidu, is on record in 2019 having called Narendra Modi a terrorist. Chandrababu Naidu has also supported affirmative action in the form of quotas for Muslims, something that Narendra Modi is in total disagreement with. I'm just giving you an example of how complicated it's going to be for Narendra Modi to manage the next few years. And the other interesting thing goes to personality. Modi has always been the alpha leader. That's how he's positioned his political persona. Now he has to go from being the alpha male to the consensus builder, because that's what you need to be to run a coalition government. And Modi, whether it's state politics or national politics, has so far never had to run a minority government. This is his first time that he will be confronted with that. And he's going to have to let go not just of some of his more contentious policies that his allies will not agree with, but also some of the more angular parts of his own persona. He's going to have to soften the edges.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can. We'll have
Yeah,
to see.
it'll be very, and also to not have that power that he has enjoyed and sort of flourished under. You know, you talked about people and the cost of living, the fact that a lot of people were left behind in the sort of economic miracle that India is in many, many ways and many people. Is this a bit of a victory for those underdogs that have been left behind?
I'll tell you a story. I met a young man at an opposition election rally when I was traveling, and he was in his early 20s. And he said, look, the only thing that matters to me is to get a good job, because it's not just about being unemployed, it's also about being underemployed. So there are a lot of people with good educational qualifications who can't get a decent break. And he said to me that if Narendra Modi in his 70s can ask the country for another chance, then in my 20s, do I not have the right to ask for a good job? And that story always stays with me. I think there was a sense of, the underdog speaking. There was also a sense of a kind of David versus Goliath battle. Everybody went into this campaign assuming that it was going to be one-sided. Modi had to win. There was a kind of air of invincibility around him. And even more than the opposition, and some credit to them for having run a very spirited campaign, it's people's own spirited pushback. It's drawn a boundary around Modi's powers. That's how I see it. Modi is still a very powerful political brand, but he is being reined in, and he's being reined in by democracy. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And tomorrow it could be some other party, and I think the Indian voter would react in a similar way if somebody got too powerful and began to believe in some ways in their own invincibility.
Yeah, and I think that triumph almost for democracy is wonderful for other countries to look at, where democracy has been diminished in so many ways in so many other countries around the world.
Well, it's interesting. There have been so many global commentators lamenting the decline of India's democracy. And I've actually never agreed with that argument. And my argument has always been that, yes, we are imperfect as a liberal democracy. We can do much better on free speech or, independence for our institutions. But as an electoral democracy, we're irrepressible. I have always made that argument that the people of India are irrepressible, at least as far as their vote goes. The vote is the one thing that is equal in an extremely unequal, large, diverse country. And I think people are reminding the polity of that diversity, of that federalism, of how complicated we are. There is no single language or region or religion that holds us together. It is a larger idea of diversity. And therefore, that complexity is something that the politicians are going to have to deal with, this idea of sort of one leader, one language, one religion. India isn't that. And I think we're seeing the voters express that through their vote.
Absolutely. Always love to get your thoughts on things and analysis. Thanks, Barkha.
Thank you for having me. Hope to see you soon.
Likewise.